welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we'll be looking at a really fascinating chapter of the Quran, chapter 6.
Yes.
Often called the cattle.
That's right.
Or Al-An'am in Arabic.
This chapter is a mix of theological arguments, historical context, and believe it or not, dietary laws.
Okay, now you've got me hooked.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the chapter opens with this, with this powerful declaration of God's absolute authority and creative power.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. Right from the first verse, chapter 6 sets the stage. It proclaims God as the sole creator of the heavens and the earth. It really makes a clear distinction between the creator and the created. And this theme, it resonates throughout the chapter.
It does, yeah.
It challenges anyone who ascribes partners to God or attributes divine qualities to created things.
There's this striking imagery used in verse 95, where God is described as the cleaver of the grain and the fruit stone.
Right.
It's such a vivid illustration
of
God's ability to bring forth life from, seemingly lifeless things. What's the significance of this particular imagery, would you say?
I think it speaks to the awe-inspiring power of God, his ability to create and sustain life in ways that are just beyond human comprehension.
Right.
The imagery of cleaving, of splitting open a seed to reveal the potential for life within. It's a really powerful metaphor for the continuous miracle of creation unfolding all around us.
Yeah. And this emphasis on God's power as the creator is juxtaposed with the challenges faced by prophets who conveyed his message.
Right.
It is, isn't it?
It is.
It seems like a recurring motif in the Quran. This idea that prophets, despite their divine mission, they often encounter resistance and disbelief from their people.
They do, yeah. And chapter 6 really highlights this shared experience. It draws parallels between Prophet Muhammad and earlier prophets like Abraham, Noah, and Moses. And it acknowledges the emotional toll of facing that rejection.
Right.
Offering comfort and reassurance to the prophet that this resistance, it's not a reflection of his personal shortcomings, but rather a rejection of God's signs themselves.
Okay.
It's a crucial message for understanding the historical context of the prophet's mission and this broader theme of divine revelation throughout history.
Yeah, this brings us to the intriguing concept of, signs. In the Quran, chapter 6 presents the Quran itself as a blessed book confirming the truth of previous scriptures.
It does.
How do scholars interpret these signs, and what is their significance for understanding the Quran's place within the broader spectrum of divine revelation?
Yeah, that's a great question. The concept of signs, it's multifaceted. It can refer to natural phenomena, historical events, even the structure and language of the Quran itself. These signs, they're meant to guide people toward the truth and serve as evidence of God's existence and his power.
Okay.
For Muslims, the Quran is the culmination of divine revelation. It affirms and clarifies the messages of previous scriptures while providing really a comprehensive guide for humanity.
Okay, so we have this foundation of God's power, the challenges of prophethood, and the concept of divine signs. Now, chapter 6, it also delves into its captivating story of Abraham's search for truth.
Yeah.
His journey is fascinating because it's so relatable. His questioning of idol worship and his contemplation of celestial bodies. These things resonate with anyone who has ever grappled with existential questions about the nature of belief and the divine.
Absolutely. I mean, Abraham's quest for understanding God is a central theme in Islamic tradition.
It is, yeah.
His unwavering monotheism, his willingness to challenge the prevailing beliefs of his society, it really makes him a model for believers.
Yeah. Chapter 6 describes his journey in detail.
Okay.
Starting with his rejection of idol worship and his search for a higher truth, his contemplation of celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars. That's a particularly interesting aspect of his narrative.
Yeah, and there seems to be a scholarly debate about whether Abraham genuinely questioned the divinity of those celestial bodies or used them rhetorically to expose the flaws in idol worship.
Right.
What are the different interpretations, and what insights do they offer into Abraham's spiritual evolution?
So there are different interpretations of this passage.
Okay.
Some scholars, they believe that Abraham's contemplation was a genuine stage in his spiritual development, reflecting his initial awe at the grandeur of the cosmos. However, as he goes deeper, he realizes that these celestial bodies, despite their magnificence, they're still created beings, subject to God's will, and therefore not worthy of worship. Other scholars interpret this passage as as a clever rhetorical strategy
Okay.
employed by Abraham to challenge the beliefs of his people.
Right.
By initially, feigning belief in the divinity of celestial bodies, he highlights their inherent flaws, right?
Yeah.
Their rising and setting, their dependence on a higher power. This interpretation emphasizes Abraham's intellectual prowess and his ability to dismantle false beliefs through reasoned argument.
Okay, so either way, it's a powerful depiction of someone wrestling with profound questions about faith, ultimately arriving at a deeper understanding of God's transcendence and the futility of worshiping anything other than the Creator.
Precisely. And, this narrative highlights the Quran's emphasis on using reason and intellect alongside revelation in our search for truth. Abraham's journey culminates in his recognition of God as the Hanif, a pure monotheist. This concept is pivotal in Islamic tradition, emphasizes the importance of worshiping God alone, free from any form of idolatry or association of partners with him.
Now, chapter 6, it doesn't shy away from tackling complex theological questions, does it?
It doesn't.
One that stands out is the interplay between divine guidance,
human free will, and accountability.
Yeah, you're right. Verses 39 and 116, 117 delve into this, intricate relationship. They've sparked centuries of debate among theologians.
Wow.
The Quran acknowledges that God guides whom he wills and leads astray whom he wills.
Okay.
A concept that raises questions about the extent of human agency and the nature of divine decree.
So how do different schools of thought within Islam reconcile this? There's apparent tension between God's will and human choice. What are the implications of each viewpoint?
There are various interpretations. For instance, the Mu'tazilite school. They emphasize human free will, arguing that God's leading astray occurs as a consequence of individuals' choices and actions.
Okay.
They believe that God provides guidance to all, but it's ultimately up to each person to choose whether to follow that guidance or reject it. In contrast, the Asharite school, they emphasize God's absolute power, and they argue that human actions, while seemingly independent, are ultimately determined by his will. They believe that God's knowledge encompasses all things, including human choices, and that he has ordained everything that happens in the universe, including the actions of individuals.
It's interesting how these different perspectives reflect
Yeah.
the diverse ways in which Muslims have grappled with these profound questions about the nature of God's power and human agency.
It is, yeah.
These debates highlight the richness and intellectual depth of Islamic theological thought throughout history.
They do.
Now, chapter 6 also shifts its focus to more practical matters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It delves into specific dietary laws and social practices,
Right.
offering guidance on how to live a righteous life in accordance with God's will.
It does, yes. Verses 118, 121, and 138, 146 address these topics in detail. They emphasize the importance of invoking God's name before consuming food, which connects to the concept of halal, permissible in Islam.
Right.
This practice underscores the awareness of God's presence in every aspect of life, even in the, seemingly mundane act of eating.
And what about the chapter's critique of the arbitrary prohibitions imposed by the Maccabees? During that time, how does that fit into the broader context of Islamic teachings on social practices and dietary laws?
Well, the Quran contrasts those arbitrary practices, often rooted in superstition or cultural norms, with the revealed laws of Islam, which are believed to be divinely ordained and grounded in wisdom and purpose. This critique emphasizes the importance of seeking guidance from God, rather than blindly following traditions or cultural norms that may contradict his commands.
And are there any specific restrictions mentioned for, say, other communities, like the Jewish community? What reasons are provided for those restrictions?
There are, yes. Verse 146 mentions specific restrictions imposed upon the Jews, particularly regarding certain types of animals they are prohibited from consuming. The chapter explains that these restrictions were imposed as a consequence of their disobedience to God's commands. This passage highlights the concept of divine law being tailored to specific communities based on their historical context and their relationship with God.
So it's not just a list of arbitrary rules, but a system of guidance with a deeper purpose, aimed at fostering righteousness and awareness of God's presence in every aspect of life.
Exactly. These dietary guidelines, along with other social and ethical teachings found throughout the Quran, they're meant to guide individuals toward a life of piety and spiritual awareness.
It's striking how this chapter seamlessly weaves together these grand theological concepts with practical guidance on how to live a righteous life. It's almost like a blueprint for spiritual growth and understanding.
That's a great way to put it. Chapter 6 provides a comprehensive exploration of the core tenets of Islam, prompting us to contemplate our relationship with God, the world around us, and the very purpose of our existence.
It's a reminder that Islam isn't merely a set of beliefs, but a way of life that encompasses every dimension of human experience, from our relationship with the divine to our interactions with each other and the natural world.
Exactly, and it invites us to embark on a continuous journey of learning, self-reflection, and spiritual growth, striving to embody the values of Islam in every thought, word, and deed. And that concept of submission, Islam, it's deeply intertwined with the idea of knowledge and understanding. Chapter 6, it doesn't just lay out a set of rules. It encourages critical thinking and reflection, challenging us to examine our beliefs and to seek knowledge from authentic sources.
Yeah, you're right. It seems to caution against blind faith, reminding us that true understanding requires effort and a willingness to grapple with, challenging questions.
Absolutely. Verse 59, for instance, it states, "And with him are the keys of the unseen. None knows them but he." This verse, it acknowledges the limits of human knowledge, and it emphasizes that certain knowledge is reserved for God alone.
Okay.
It's a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the mysteries that lie beyond our grasp.
So it's a call for humility, recognizing that even with all our advancements in science and technology, there are still things we simply cannot know.
Precisely, yeah. And this humility, it should lead us to place our trust in God's wisdom and to seek guidance from his revelation.
There's this fascinating connection made between sleep and death. In verse 60, It reads, "He it is who takes your souls by night, and he knows what you commit by day. Then by day he resurrects you, that a term appointed may be fulfilled." It's a beautiful analogy, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Sleep is presented as a kind of mini death and resurrection, like a daily experience. That mirrors the larger cycle of life and death.
Right.
Each night, our souls are taken by God, and each morning we're resurrected to continue our earthly journey.
It's a subtle yet profound reminder of God's power over life and death.
Yeah.
And a way of preparing us
Yeah.
for, the ultimate resurrection, on the day of judgment.
Exactly, yeah. It's woven into the fabric of our existence, a constant reminder of our dependence on God and the transient nature of this worldly life.
Then there's the discussion of angels, those beings of light, who serve as messengers between God and humanity.
Right.
Verse 61 says, "He sends guardians over you, till when death comes unto one of you, our messengers take him, and they neglect not their duty."
This verse, it highlights the belief that angels are present throughout our lives, recording our deeds, protecting us from harm, and ultimately guiding our souls back to God.
It's a comforting thought, knowing that we're not alone in this journey.
It is.
Yeah. It adds another layer to this idea of accountability. Our actions are constantly being recorded, and we will be held responsible for them in the hereafter.
Right. It fosters a sense of awareness, recognition that our choices have consequences, both in this world and the next.
Chapter 6 also seems to caution against falling into blind obedience, especially when it comes to following social norms or cultural traditions that contradict God's commands.
Yeah, it does. Verse 116 is a powerful reminder of this. It says, "Wert thou to obey most of those on earth, they would lead thee astray from the way of God. They follow not but conjecture, and they do but surmise." This warning, it applies not just to prophets, but to all believers.
It's a call for critical thinking and independent judgment. We should always strive to align our actions with God's will, even if it means challenging societal norms or questioning long-held traditions.
It is. It's about prioritizing truth and divine guidance over blind conformity.
And this emphasis on independent thinking, it ties into this recurring theme of challenging those who demand proof or miracles before they believe. Verse 109 states, "They swear by God with their most solemn oaths that were a sign to come unto them. They would surely believe in it. Say, signs are with God alone." What will make you realize that even if they were to come, they would still not believe?
Yeah, this passage highlights the futility of seeking external validation for faith.
Right.
True belief, it stems from an internal conviction, a recognition of the signs of God's existence and his power that are already present in the world around us.
It's a profound observation. Even if someone were to witness a spectacular miracle, it wouldn't necessarily change their heart. Faith is ultimately a matter of the heart, an inner knowing that transcends the need for outward proof.
It is, and that inner knowing can be cultivated through contemplation, reflection, and seeking knowledge from authentic sources.
Speaking of knowledge, Chapter 6 also addresses the responsibility that comes with it, particularly in how we treat others. It cautions against arrogance and emphasizes compassion and understanding, even when dealing with those who hold different beliefs.
Yeah, it does. Verse 108 eloquently captures this. It says, "Do not revile those whom they call upon apart from God, lest they should revile God out of enmity without any knowledge. Thus have we made the deeds of every community seem fair unto them. Then unto their Lord shall be their return, and he will inform them of that which they used to do." It's a powerful reminder that everyone is on their own spiritual journey.
Right.
We should approach those who hold different beliefs with respect and understanding, recognizing that God is the ultimate judge of our actions and intentions.
It's about fostering dialogue and peaceful coexistence, recognizing the inherent dignity of every human being, and the importance of treating others with compassion and fairness.
It is, yeah.
This emphasis on mercy ties into the concept of God's absolute power and sovereignty, which is another recurring theme in chapter 6.
Okay.
How are these two seemingly contrasting ideas reconciled within the Islamic worldview?
It's a beautiful paradox. You know, at the heart of Islam, God is described as dominant over his servants in verses 18 and 61. And this dominance, it isn't about tyranny or oppression. It's about God's ultimate authority, his perfect knowledge, and his control over all things. And this very power, it's the source of his boundless mercy and compassion.
So it's a recognition that we are utterly dependent on God for everything. You know, our very existence, our sustenance, our guidance, and this awareness, it should cultivate within us a sense of gratitude and humility, knowing that God's mercy encompasses all things.
Precisely. Yeah, it's about approaching life with a sense of awe and wonder, recognizing the countless blessings God has bestowed upon us, striving to live in a way that reflects our gratitude for his boundless grace.
And this gratitude is beautifully expressed in the chapter's descriptions of the natural world, the abundance of God's creation, the sustenance he provides.
Yes, verses 99 and 141, they paint this vivid picture of God's creation, you know, gardens teeming with fruits, flowing rivers, livestock grazing in lush pastures. It's a celebration of the diversity and richness of God's creation, a reminder to appreciate the beauty and bounty that surrounds us.
Yeah, it's an invitation to be mindful of our consumption, to avoid wastefulness and excess, and to use the resources God has provided wisely and sustainably.
Absolutely. Verse 141 cautions, "But be not prodigal. Truly, he loves not the prodigal." You know, it's a reminder to be grateful for what we have, and to recognize that everything we possess ultimately belongs to God.
And this awareness of our place within the grand scheme of creation ties into the chapter's focus on the interconnectedness of all things.
It does, yeah.
It suggests that we are part of a vast and intricate web of life, and our actions have ripple effects beyond our immediate sphere of influence.
Absolutely. Verse 38 states, "There is no creature that crawls upon the earth, nor bird that flies upon its wings, but that they are communities like yourselves. We have neglected nothing in the book, and they shall be gathered unto their Lord in the end."
It's a profound statement, recognizing the inherent value of all creatures and their interconnectedness within God's grand design. It suggests that we have a responsibility to treat all living beings with respect and compassion, recognizing their place within the delicate balance of the ecosystem.
It is. It's a call for ecological awareness, a reminder that our actions have consequences not just for ourselves, but for the entire web of life.
Chapter 6 also delves into the complex relationship between faith and reason, particularly when it comes to understanding God's will.
Right.
It acknowledges the limits of human understanding, while encouraging us to use our intellect and reason to seek knowledge and guidance.
Yeah. Verse 117 beautifully captures this delicate balance. It says, "Surely thy Lord knows best those who stray from his way, and he knows best the rightly guided." This verse, it reminds us that God's wisdom surpasses our comprehension.
Okay.
There are mysteries we may never fully grasp, aspects of his plan that may forever remain beyond our understanding.
But it also suggests that we shouldn't simply surrender to blind faith or passively accept everything without questioning or seeking deeper understanding.
Right. It's about using our reason and intellect, you know, the gifts God has bestowed upon us, to explore the complexities of faith, to delve into the meaning behind his commands, and to strive to align our actions with his will, even when the reasons may not be fully apparent to us.
So it's about cultivating a heart that is both submissive and discerning, a mind that is both humble and inquisitive.
Exactly.
And this approach to faith is essential for navigating the complexities of life, for responding to the challenges that inevitably arise on our spiritual journey. Now, Chapter 6 also addresses the relationship between this world and the hereafter, reminding us of the transient nature of this earthly existence and the importance of keeping our focus on the ultimate goal, pleasing God and attaining paradise.
Okay.
How does this theme play out within the chapter?
Well, verse 32 beautifully captures this. It says, "This life is not but play and diversion, but surely the hereafter is better for those who are God-fearing." Do you not understand? It's a reminder that the pleasures and pursuits of this world, while alluring, are ultimately fleeting.
So it's not about denying ourselves the joys of this life, but rather about keeping things in perspective,
Right.
recognizing that this world is merely a temporary abode, a testing ground for our souls. The true reward lies in the hereafter, in the eternal presence of God.
Exactly. It's about striving for a balance, enjoying the blessings God has provided in this world, while remaining mindful of our ultimate purpose, striving to live in a way that pleases Him.
Chapter 6 is truly a multifaceted exploration of Islamic beliefs and values. It's a chapter that invites us to think deeply about our relationship with God, our responsibilities to others, and the ultimate purpose of our lives.
It is. It's a chapter that speaks to the heart, mind, and soul, offering guidance and inspiration for all who seek to live a life of meaning and purpose.
It's remarkable how this chapter manages to weave together such intricate theological concepts with practical guidance.
Yeah.
On navigating the complexities of daily life. It's like a tapestry. It reveals more of its richness and depth with every careful examination.
Right. I think it speaks to the holistic nature of the Quranic message, its ability to address really the full spectrum of human experience, from those profound questions of existence to the seemingly mundane aspects of our daily routines.
Yeah. One of the things that really struck me was the emphasis on personal responsibility and accountability. It's like Chapter 6 acknowledges that, God is ultimately in control, but we also have a crucial role to play in shaping our own destiny through the choices we make.
Right. It's a delicate balance, acknowledging God's sovereignty, but also recognizing our own agency. The Quran, it repeatedly emphasizes that we will be held accountable for our actions, both good and bad.
Right.
It can be a sobering thought, but it's also empowering in a way.
Yeah.
It means that our choices, they matter,
Yeah.
and that we have the ability to shape our own character and ultimately determine our eternal fate.
So moving on, what does Chapter 6 say about those who stay in disbelief?
Chapter 6 explores the nature of those who associate partners with God, those who try to divide their allegiance and worship between God and other things.
And naturally, the chapter stresses that these false protectors can't ultimately benefit them or save them from God's judgment.
Right.
Verse 70 says, "And leave those who take their religion as amusement and diversion, and whom the worldly life has deceived. But remind them with it, lest a soul be given up to destruction for what it has earned. It will have besides God no protector and no intercessor. And if it should offer every compensation, it would not be accepted from it. Those are the ones who are given up to destruction for what they have earned. For them will be a drink of scalding water and a painful punishment because they used to disbelieve." It's a stark reminder that we should rely on God alone. He's the only one who can offer true protection and guidance.
Verses 30 and 31 are quite vivid. "And if you could but see when they are made to stand before their Lord, He will say, 'Is this not the truth?' They will say, 'Yes, by our Lord.' He will say, 'Then taste the punishment for what you used to deny.' Already have those who disbelieved in the meeting with God lost this world and the hereafter, and when the hour comes upon them unexpectedly, they will say, 'Oh, how great is our regret over what we neglected concerning it,' while they bear their burdens upon their backs. Unquestionably, evil is that which they bear." It's a powerful reminder that our actions have consequences, and the choices we make in this life have eternal implications.
Sobering, for sure. But it also highlights how important it is to choose wisely, to live according to God's guidance, and strive to earn His favor in the hereafter.
That's the heart of it. Now, the chapter takes a surprising turn and addresses those who claim they know the unseen, those who brag about knowing things beyond human comprehension.
This happens everywhere, right?
I think
in every culture, religion, you have people claiming they have special access to divine knowledge or secrets. What does Chapter 6 say about those who make these claims?
The chapter warns against it. Verse 50 states, "Say, 'O Muhammad, I do not tell you that I have the treasuries of God, or that I know the unseen, nor do I tell you that I am an angel. I only follow what is revealed to me.' Say, 'Is the blind equivalent to the seeing? Then will you not contemplate?'" It's a reminder that true knowledge comes from God alone, and no human, Not even the prophets can claim to fully understand the unseen.
It's the call to humility, to acknowledge that our human understanding is limited, and to be cautious of those who make grand claims of knowledge or try to take advantage of people's beliefs for their own benefit.
It's a call to be discerning, to use your intellect and critical thinking to evaluate those claims and recognize the difference between genuine revelation and what humans have made up.
And it's a strong affirmation of the importance of education and intellectual curiosity in shaping how we understand the world and navigate the complexities of belief and faith.
Absolutely. The pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong journey, and it requires us to be both humble and discerning, to seek truth from trustworthy sources, and to admit the limitations of our own understanding.
Now, this call to reason and reflection is followed by an interesting discussion about the importance of seeking God's favor and avoiding what might displease him. It seems like this gets to the core of what it means to live a truly devout life.
You're right on the mark. The chapter emphasizes sincere worship and avoiding hypocrisy. Verse 52 says, "And do not repel those who call upon their Lord morning and evening, seeking his countenance. You are not accountable for them in anything, and they are not accountable for you in anything, that you should repel them and thus become of the wrongdoers."
So it's about recognizing the genuine piety of those who seek God, regardless of their outward appearance or social status. It's about looking beyond superficial differences and seeing the sincerity in their hearts.
Precisely. True faith isn't about outward show or empty rituals. It's about your intentions and the sincerity of your heart. It's about nurturing that inner connection with God, which then shows in your actions and how you interact with others.
It's also a warning against judging others based on superficial things or letting our own biases blind us to the genuine faith of those around us. It's a call to be humble and open-minded, to recognize that we don't have the authority to judge people's hearts.
A crucial point. And it's interesting how the chapter links this discussion of sincerity with a reminder that God is the ultimate judge.
It's like saying, focus on your own relationship with God, live a life of gratitude and humility, and remember that it's God who determines your worth, not what other people think or say.
You nailed it. Chapter 6 continues to unfold this tapestry of guidance, going deeper into the complexities of faith, action, and our relationship with God.
So where do we go from here in our exploration?
Well, we were talking about being sincere in our worship, avoiding hypocrisy. Chapter 6 gives this beautiful verse about God's mercy. Verse 54 says, "And when those who believe in our verses come to you, O Muhammad, say, peace be upon you, your Lord has decreed upon himself mercy, that any of you who does wrong out of ignorance, and then repents after that, and corrects himself in deed, he is forgiving and merciful."
It's like a breath of fresh air after all those warnings, Reminds us that God's mercy is there for those who turn back to him and truly repent, no matter what they've done.
A message of hope for sure and redemption. It's saying you can stray, but forgiveness is always possible. All you gotta do is admit your mistakes, turn back to God, and try to do better.
It's powerful how God's love and compassion are just boundless. So the chapter then kind of shifts, right?
Yeah.
Addressing those misconceptions about Prophet Muhammad's role, his authority. It seems like people were questioning him, even accusing him of making up the revelation.
Yeah, that's a common thread in the stories of prophets, isn't it? They face pushback, skepticism from those who just won't accept the message. Chapter 6 tackles these accusations head on. Verse 51 says, "And warn with it those who fear that they will be gathered before their Lord, for them besides him will be no protector and no intercessor, that they might become righteous."
So it's emphasizing that the prophet is human, reminding everyone he's just a messenger, not some divine being with special knowledge.
Right. It rejects those who try to make the prophet into something he's not, giving him attributes that belong only to God. The chapter makes it clear. Prophet Muhammad's authority comes solely from the revelation he received, not from some claim of personal power or knowledge.
It's a good reminder that even prophets are human. They're chosen by God to deliver his message, but they're not gods themselves, just vessels for divine revelation.
You got it. And then the chapter addresses those who wanted physical proof from the prophet. Like, if this is really from God, show us a miracle.
It's a very human thing to want, right? To see something tangible, something that proves what you believe. How does the Quran respond to that demand for proof?
The Quran reminds us that faith isn't about physical evidence. It's about recognizing a truth that's beyond what we can see or touch. Verse 35 says, "And if their evasion is difficult for you, then if you are able to seek a tunnel into the earth or a stairway into the sky to bring them a sign, then do so. But if God had willed, he would have gathered them upon guidance. So be not of the ignorant." It's about patience, trust, knowing that the real proof will be revealed when God decides.
It's a challenge to have faith that's based on something more than just physical proof. It's about trusting in those unseen realities, the things beyond what we can immediately see.
Perfectly said. Chapter 6 then dives into this concept of divine justice, stressing how important it is to see God as the ultimate source of law, of authority.
Divine justice has always fascinated me. What does it mean in the context of this chapter?
It means recognizing that God is the final judge of what's right and wrong, that his laws are just and fair, and will all be held accountable based on his standards. Verse 152 says, "And do not approach the property of the orphan except in a way that is best, until he reaches maturity. And give full measure and weight in justice. We do not charge any soul except with that within its capacity. And when you speak, be just, even if it concerns a near relative, and fulfill the covenant of God. This has he instructed you that you may remember." It's a call for justice in our societies, treating each other fairly and upholding everyone's rights, regardless of their background or status.
So it's not just like theoretical stuff. It's about putting those principles into practice, building a society that reflects God's justice and mercy.
The chapter then speaks to those who reject God's guidance, choosing to follow their desires instead.
It says their hearts are hardened and they follow their own caprices without any knowledge.
Right. It paints this powerful image of spiritual blindness, stubbornness. Their hearts are closed off, and they're driven by their own selfish desires, not God's will.
And the chapter is clear about the consequences of that path, warning them that their actions will make them impure and ultimately lead to a painful punishment in the hereafter.
It's a reminder that our choices matter, both in this life and the next, and turning away from God's guidance inevitably leads to suffering and loss.
The chapter ends with a powerful reminder: submitting to God's will. It's like everything comes full circle, back to recognizing God's absolute power and surrendering to his guidance.
Verses 162 and 163 beautifully capture this idea of submission. Say, "Indeed, my prayer, my rites of sacrifice, my living and my dying are for God, Lord of the worlds. No partner has he. And this I have been commanded, and I am the first among you of the Muslims." It's a call to surrender everything, our hearts, minds, actions, to God's will, because that's where we find true peace and fulfillment.
What a perfect ending to such a profound, challenging chapter. What a journey. We've covered God's power and mercy, ethical conduct, social justice, the struggles of disbelief, and the beauty of submission. Is there anything else that stands out to you as a key takeaway from this chapter?
Well, I think one of the most profound messages is this call to be a Hanif, which we discussed earlier in the context of Abraham's journey. It's this idea of seeking a pure, unadulterated form of monotheism, free from any idolatry or association of partners with God.
Right, it's about recognizing God's absolute uniqueness and worshiping him alone. But it's not just an abstract theological concept, is it?
It's not.
It seems to have very practical implications for how we live our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It translates into constantly striving to purify our intentions, ensuring that all of our actions, even the seemingly insignificant ones, are directed towards pleasing God. It means rejecting any form of hypocrisy or pretense in our worship, living a life of authenticity, where our outward actions reflect our inner convictions.
So it's about aligning our inner and outer worlds, living with integrity, and striving to embody the qualities of a true believer in every aspect of our existence.
Exactly. It's a lifelong journey of learning, self-reflection, and spiritual growth, constantly refining our understanding of God, and striving to live in a way that honors his will.
This deep dive into Chapter 6 has been incredibly enlightening. It's amazing how much wisdom and guidance can be found within a single chapter of the Quran. It's like a vast ocean, offering endless depths to explore and contemplate.
Yeah, it is a testament to the richness and complexity of the Quranic message. Its ability to speak to people across cultures and centuries, providing timeless wisdom and guidance.
So as we wrap up this exploration, what's one thought-provoking question you'd like to leave our listener with? Something for them to kind of ponder as they continue their own journey of discovery and understanding.
I think a good question is, how does Chapter 6 challenge us to think critically about our own beliefs and practices, particularly those we may have inherited without questioning their origins or purpose? It's an invitation to engage with our faith on a deeper level, to move beyond blind acceptance, and to seek a more nuanced and meaningful understanding of what it truly means to be a believer.
It's a powerful call to embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth, to delve into the wisdom of the Quran with an open heart and an inquiring mind, allowing its teachings to illuminate our path and guide us towards a life of purpose and meaning.
And to always remember that the pursuit of knowledge is a lifelong endeavor, a journey that never truly ends.
Well, thank you for guiding us through this fascinating exploration of Chapter 6. It's been a truly enriching experience. And to our listener, we encourage you to continue your own exploration of the Quran. It's a journey that will undoubtedly enrich your life in countless ways. Until next time, keep diving deep,